Alrighty. Welcome back to the Rebel Hole Studios podcast. We are here today with Robert Black Eagle, a dear friend of ours who is the founder and the leader of the seventh generation Native American church here in Athens. Um, Tell us about your journey in starting this church, how it came to be, and how you uh, discovered Rabbit Hole Studios.
It's a long story.
Strap in.
Probably goes back to when I was about 9 years old. And I grew up in kind of a schizophrenic. I describe my religious background as somewhat schizophrenic. My mother and all of her family were pretty evangelical, conservative, and very deeply involved in Southern Baptist tradition and religion. On my father's side, I'm third generation Sicilian,
Mm.
and my Italian family was very deeply rooted in Roman Catholicism. When my parents met and decided that they wanted to be married, my Italian grandparents pitched a fit, said, "Oh, you've got to marry in the Catholic Church." My father was the first in our family to marry outside of the church.
Mm.
This was in a day, fortunately, we're not in that day today, but this was a day prior to the Second Vatican Council, which is a major council of the Roman Catholic Church,
Mm-hmm.
in which major policy is established. Prior to Vatican II, everything in the church was done in Latin. Mass was spoken in Latin. They had very strict rules and regulations about everything. Uh, but my parents had to go through premarital counseling to be married in the Catholic Church. And one of the requirements was they had to sign a paper indicating that they would raise any children born into the marriage in the Catholic faith.
Mm-hmm.
Now, again, everything was done in Latin. They had a book called the Missal, which you could read along, but my brother and I were little fellows. We couldn't read.
Mm-hmm.
And in the Catholic Church, which at that time was St. Joseph's Catholic Church, right down here in Athens, Georgia, down at the end of Prince Avenue. The place was quiet, spooky. The acoustics where you could hear a pin drop. The nuns would kind of saunter around like penguins in the church. And my brother and I found it to be rather entertaining.
Mm-hmm.
They'd ring the bell and people would kneel. They'd ring the bell again and people would stand and ring the bell 3 times. And this would happen. If you've ever been in the Catholic Church, you know what I'm talking about.
I had a friend.
So my brother and I ended up in a lot of trouble. We'd laugh, get cracked up, especially when they passed that long offering plate with the stick down there.
Mm-hmm.
So my point of that is my parents decided it'd be better if we didn't go to the Catholic Church no more.
Mm.
So we started going to the Baptist Church with my mother, which at the time was East Athens Baptist Church, which was at the end of Popper Street, just up the road from Mama's Boy.
Oh yeah.
And that's a church that I think later on REM actually purchased and turned it into like condominiums.
Oh cool.
Yeah.
But that's the church that I grew up in.
Wow.
My father owned a Shell service station in downtown Athens, down on West Broad Street.
Oh, okay.
One day when I was about 9 years old, I was down there helping when the car pulled up, and this was, of course, service station. So we swept out the floorboards and cleaned the windshield and checked the oil, the air in the tires, and pumped the gas. So car pulled up, and I went out to do those things, and out stepped a man that I recognized immediately as a priest.
Hmm.
And he began talking with me, introduced himself, said he was a new priest in town, and began to have conversation. Where do you go to school? Where does your brother go to school? Where do you go to church? Oh, we go over to East Athens Baptist Church with my mother. He said, oh, you don't go to the Catholic Church with your father? No, sir, we don't go over there no more. Just having conversation, being honest and answering the man's questions. I had great respect for him. Little did I know that I was actually setting my father up for betrayal,
Oh no.
because from there he went into the service station to pay for the gas, and I followed him in. And the priest said, I'm the new priest in town. Going through some forms in the office, and I saw one where you and your wife signed stating that you would raise your children in the Catholic faith. And I was just outside talking to your son, and he told me, and I'm hearing all this and realizing, oh my God, I've just betrayed my father.
Oh no.
I didn't realize what was happening. So I kind of had that angst going on
Mm-hmm.
in the moment, watching all of this unfold. So the priest banned my father from communion until he could bring himself and his family in compliance with the paper that they had signed. And it's, uh, banning from communion was one step away from excommunication from the church. That's pretty serious business for a Catholic. He had done well if he had stopped there, but he didn't. And as he was about to leave, he turned around and turned to my father and he said, by the way, if one of your two boys were to die tonight, you'd be responsible for them going to hell.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Horrific.
So my father had a little bit of a temper, and that day it showed itself. That was not a pretty picture. But the point of telling that story is that here was a 9-year-old boy who every night would kneel down with the family, his brothers, mother, his father, by the bedside and speak our bedtime prayers. Now I lay me down to sleep. I pray, dear Lord, my soul to keep. If I should die before I wake, I pray, dear Lord, my soul you would take. Now the priest just added a whole level of fear to that. If I should die before I wake, he said, because the priest just told me that if that happened, I was going to go to hell. And that was a pretty scary place for a young boy to be. So I realized early on that there was a great mystery attached to this business about God and religion and spirituality. And I followed that, trying to figure that all out and understand it, all the way to Emory University's Candler School of Theology. 13 years in the ordained ministry of the United Methodist Church. And one day, after 13 years, through some personal trials and struggles towards the end, the dissolving of a marriage and the family and whatnot, a lot of hurt involved in that, I walked away from the traditional church for many reasons, not all of which are pertinent to this conversation today. And I realized early on in that journey that I had an opportunity to redefine the pulpit, so to speak. That I had an opportunity just out in the day in, day out stuff of life to have a unique ministry in and of itself, apart from or without any attachment to the traditional church, just to where the people are. And so a whole new realm of ministry and possibility opened up to me. And even though I was in a professional career for many years of marketing and advertising and sales, and then for many years here in business with my brother in Watkinsville, found myself face to face across the table, across the counter from people who were hurting, people who were in need, people who just needed conversation. One day, I happened to be enjoying food at a restaurant over on the other side of town, and this beautiful young lady was serving my food. And here was another opportunity for ministry, because Creator had put someone in front of me that was interested, like-minded, wanted to know more about me, and we had a nice talk, and that young lady was Victoria. And I made her aware of some ceremonies that we were doing, Native American ceremonies, some prayer gatherings. And Victoria expressed an interest in coming, and we exchanged phone numbers. Fast forward several years, now it's 2019.
Mm-hmm.
After a vision quest in 2015, in which I was given the vision to create the seventh generation Native American church, then spending a couple of years trying to set everything up from a legal perspective. We have a state recognized nonprofit corporation in Georgia, and then going on to applying for federal 501c3 status with the Internal Revenue Service, and all of that took a lot of time and money. Putting together websites to promote the work in the church.
That's a lot.
So we spent several years doing that. November of 2019, I gave Victoria a call, said we're having a prayer ceremony. Love for you to come. She showed up with one of your friends. Is it Maya?
Mara.
Mara.
Yeah. I was living with her at the time. It was actually at Healing Path Farm.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
I almost showed up to that one, actually. Something I had heard about it on Facebook, and we probably would have met a lot sooner had I shown up. I had something come up, but it's funny how that works.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you weren't supposed to meet at that time.
Yeah.
Maybe you weren't ready.
That's right.
All things on time and in time. But anyway, we were poised at the end of 2019 to move forward in a pretty exciting way. We had several ceremonies planned. We were going to be doing regular ceremonies for prayer with the pipe. We had weddings that were already on the calendar to officiate. I had connections with some folks up in Chattanooga, Tennessee, where we were going to be teaching classes about Native American history and culture to homeschool kids at a place called Reflection Riding up on Lookout Mountain. So 2020 promised to be a great year. And then, of course, we all know that COVID visited us at that time, and everything just kind of came to a standstill. I actually, during this time, was living in a camper, which I had purchased, and when COVID hit, I had a friend in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and we made a decision that it would be best if we kind of rode this thing out in a house rather than in my little camper.
Yeah.
So I spent the last 3 years in Chattanooga. In April, came back to visit my mother. She'd be 93 on Christmas Eve of this year. And take care of some other business matters. And one night I was sitting in a rented Airbnb when I got a text from somebody asking me if I'd ever have any interest in playing Native American music. And that text came from Victoria, who I don't think you knew that I had spent the last 3 years in Chattanooga.
Yeah, I had no idea.
Yeah, and I don't think you even knew that I was here. It was just a random text, do you have an interest? And of course that opened up conversation, which quickly moved and escalated to your saying you wanted to speak with the man who handles the Wednesday night meditation and yoga about me coming to make a talk.
Yeah.
Well, at that time in the conversation, I didn't know that the man you were speaking about was JC. JC and I had a history that preceded even that. I've been in several ceremonies, medicine ceremonies with JC, and we've been in song circle together, so we have a little bit of a history there. Which again, at the time, one would say, well, that's kind of an interesting coincidence, but I don't believe in coincidences. I just believe in moments of magic and miracles.
That's definitely what it felt like when you came back, you know, just so many things lining up together for you to be here. And
exactly. Quickly. I mean, it was just like bam, 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 right? One right after the other. because the next thing that came along was the Healing Arts Festival that we had here.
Right.
And then from there, the invitation to come out and have ceremony at the fire at Wesley's property. The point of that is that it soon became apparent that now was the time, and that this would be the place. And that's when I came and sat with the two of you and JC, and I just shared with you what is my vision.
And that mission, you know, coming from the vision that Crazy Horse had, if you could just relay that, what you have told us many times, and kind of a big part of why it's called the seventh generation.
Sure. That was all part of the Vision Quest in 2015. Vision Quest, which was 8 weeks in the making, which culminated at a place called Hovenweek National Monument, which is up in the Four Corners area. And again, some would say it's rather coincidental that I ended up in this area, because it was not even on my radar, nowhere close. But Hovenweek is a place where 1,500 years ago there was a settlement of the Anasazi, the southern end of the Chaco Canyon. Anasazi were the star people. They were considered the people from the stars. About 1,000 years ago, they mysteriously vanished and disappeared. More conservative historians say they moved north and merged with the Puebloans. But those of us that are a little bit more spiritually inclined say no, they returned to the place from whence they came, and they are our guardians in the celestial realm. But it was here at this Hovenweek National Monument, after 3 days of fasting and spending time in the desert, sunrise of the fourth morning, I was given a very clear vision that it's time now to take all of this, bring it back to Athens, and create a church community. And it would be called the Seventh Generation Native American Church, because it was also at this vision at Hovenweek that I don't know if I can say I was reminded or I was introduced to this vision of Crazy Horse, but nevertheless it was at the center of that vision, in which September 1st of 1877, Crazy Horse was Sitting Bull, 4 days before Crazy Horse was murdered. And they were praying together, and Crazy Horse had what is come known now to be the seventh generation vision, or the seventh generation prophecy, in which he said, upon suffering beyond suffering, the Red Nation will rise again, and it shall be a blessing for a sick and a broken world, a world of disillusionment, a world of separations, a world of broken promises, a world longing for the light again. And every time I tell this story, I always pause there and ask this question: does that sound remotely familiar to the world in which we live today? And just like now, there's always a resounding affirmation that yes, this is the world in which we live today. The Crazy Horse went on to say, I see a time of 7 generations when all of the colors of mankind will gather and the sacred circle of life will become one again. And that day there will be those among our people who carry knowledge and wisdom of harmony and unity among all living things. And there will be the young ones who come hungry, and they will ask for this wisdom. And in that interaction, that's when I began to see that, my goodness, we're in that seventh generation, this generation of your age.
You know, the first time you met me, you told me that story, and it always stayed like lingering in the back of my mind. And certain scenarios would come up, and I would kind of mention, this guy Robert I met, he told me this prophecy, and now it's just so interesting to be like, to have you here and have the church here, and you know, these cycles that come back around, and you get to see a little bit more and a little bit deeper. And I know that it's only just begun as well.
Oh yeah, there's so much potential that we have to reach people, to help people, to teach people,
Mm-hmm.
to be to be that seventh generation emerging family, that generation that's going to restore, return, and reconcile this broken world. This will be the generation that restores and brings that light to a world of darkness. And that's an exciting place to be, an exciting time to be
Mm-hmm.
a part of. And for me, being on the elder side of that prophecy, to see it happening among you and the community that's developing here, I don't really have words for it.
Mm-hmm.
To say it's exciting, that doesn't do it justice.
Yeah.
To say it's humbling, that doesn't do it justice. To say it's an honor, it's so much bigger than that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we feel the same to have you here and JC, and to see this community rising up together with shared values. And um, it's always been a dream of mine to like find a church like this, right, where um, it obviously has the emphasis on Native American wisdom and history, but is also very open to all religious paths, and recognizing that they're really all the same. And it reminds me of the, I guess, what would you call it, a mission statement, or
Well,
how would you,
it's interesting that you brought that up because I've been working
oh, cool.
on that this
Great.
week, and
What's the latest draft looking like?
let me see if
So, for those of you that don't know, we hold a Sunday service every Sunday. And Robert leads, and JC also helps out, and he plays a lot of music, and they both, you know, share passages and songs, and um, just just wisdom from many walks of life, many religions, and um, while having, you know, the emphasis on unity and um, worship and all.
all of the things that Crazy Horse foresaw that would happen in the seventh generation, that all of the colors of mankind will gather together. We have that represented here in the community.
Mm-hmm.
It's emerging, multi-dimensional, multifaceted, multiracial, multi-everything.
Yeah.
And the emphasis on that the last part of the um, the prophecy where it says, you know, when I see that, when that space in you and you see that space in me, and you know, we see that space in everything, and in every religion and every walk of life. um, I'm just so grateful to have, you know, yeah, just a community and a group of individuals who can share that openness with each other, and it's something really special. And yeah, I'm just so grateful and excited to watch it grow.
Me too. This is what I've been working on, Nick, is in the traditional church, it would be called an affirmation of faith.
Mm-hmm.
The traditional church, there were several creeds, the one of the more popular ones being the Apostles' Creed.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Use that in their liturgy or their service as a statement of what we believe
Mm-hmm.
as a faith community. The one that I have created with the contribution of several of our church family is this. We believe in one God, that which is known by many names, to whom there are many paths, creator of the universe, the heaven and earth, and all that dwells within. We affirm that by the shared and the sacred breath of the Creator, we in all things are related in the sacred circle of life. We acknowledge the sanctity of all beings and all things, animate and inanimate. We accept our mutual and shared responsibility to our sacred mother, the earth, to protect and preserve her gifts and her resources. Aho, o metakile oasim.
I love that. I love the new addition since I last heard it. That's really beautiful.
And I feel like that kind of covers the whole thing. You know, it covers our relationship with the Creator, it covers our relationship with each other, and it covers our relationship with the earth.
Oh yeah.
With the Sacred Mother. And people ask often, well, what does the word aho mean? And what does the o matakiwe, oasim mean? Those are Lakota words, by the way. And aho is a word of agreement, much like someone in the church today may use amen. It's not uncommon when we sit in prayer for someone to finish their prayer and another one say aho, which is an amen, or brother, behold, I stand with you, I'm agreeing with you. Mitakiwe, or awesome, literally translates to my relatives. Someone would come into the village, they'd be greeted with, oh, Mitakiwe, awesome, my relatives are here. But as is the case with so much Native American spirituality, we understand that there's so much more of that. And again, as reflected in that statement of faith, by virtue of the shared sacred breath of the Creator, we realize that we're all related. Not just the two-legged, or those that look like us, speak like us, dress like us, think like us, behave like us, but all things, all people, the bird people, the four-leggeds, the people of the water, the people of the air, tree people, the rock people. Because when the Creator spoke all that into being, 7 days later, according to the story in the book, he had this brilliant idea to make you and me. And that same breath that spoke all of that other stuff into being is the same breath that was breathed and spoken into you. And so by virtue of that, we're all related in this sacred circle of life. And I think that's too at the heart of the message of the church. That we're not as different as we imagine that we are, or worse yet, that we've been taught that we are.
Right. And that's, you know, the 7 sacred teachings that you go through, that's kind of the finale of it, you know, the finale of what Crazy Horse said. And it's really just being able to open our mind and our hearts to the fact that we are all here together, and, you know, that, finding that space to love and accept all parts of ourselves, you know, all parts of the creation, and all beings.
The oneness of it all.
It really is that simple, and
It really is.
it's so sad to see so many in the world blinded by divisiveness and fundamentalism, that, you know, anyone who's not of this path, they're all going to hell.
Exactly.
And it's really destructive to the bonds that, you know, ought to unite humanity, that we're all a part of this great mystery, and we're all worthy of respect and love and support.
Well, you know, a lot of religion today and a lot of religious expressions and experiences all seem to focus on sin, what we've done wrong, and what we deserve, or what are our consequences as a result of that sin. I was reading in preparation for today's message, and I wish I could find it now. Maybe we can edit this and we can get it later. But there's a verse of scripture, I think my timer's going off, it's saying that it's about 30 minutes.
It's okay. We can keep going.
Yeah.
In Proverbs, and it just jumped out to me, I'd never seen this before, where the verse says, and love is the greatest atonement for sin.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we've talked about the concept of sin before in church and how really it's just we try and we miss the mark, right? But the traditional church would have you believe or have you think that we somehow need to be saved from all of that. But as you're saying right here, and it's reflected in that scripture that just jumped at me, it says love is the greatest atonement.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no accident then that love is the seventh of the seven sacred teachings. It's that place of arrival, if you will. And the preceding seven teachings, humility, honesty, courage, truth, wisdom, are just processes or steps of the returning, the restoration and the reconciliation of things through the process and through the practice of love, which is that place, again, where Crazy Horse said, when you are there and I am there, then we shall be as one. And as I understand it, that's what's at the heart of the gospel. That's what's at the heart of the lessons, the teachings of all great spiritual beings throughout generations, throughout history.
Beautifully said.
Thank you.
This reminds me, the prior to reconnecting with you or meeting you, I had a big phase, like 2 or 3 years, where I was reading all about the perennial philosophy. I'm sure you've maybe heard that or heard of Aldous Huxley and his writings about it, but it's really a much more ancient tradition, that kind of unites all the schools of mysticism throughout the world, which are sort of the antithesis of like the fundamentalist of every religion, the ones that are saying, oh, ours is the only path, and all others, smite them, for their deception or their heresies, and I just really love. I've also had a lot of time spent in Peru with Native American healers, Native South American healers, and to me it's just the like I couldn't imagine a more perfect synthesis of all the paths that I've studied and walked with throughout life, to see them all sort of coalesce here with you, and to see that Native American container for it, but also we read from scripture from many different religions, and help people understand how these are just many different ways of saying the same thing. And I believe that message can set the world free.
No doubt.
Yeah.
In fact of the matter, I think that's the only message that can set us free. The only message that can ultimately individually heal ourselves. Is a race of broken people. You stop and think about it. We're living in the year almost 2023, and right now there are wars raging throughout this world, and prejudice, bias, these things are at the heart of divisiveness, politically, religiously, on every front. And never, it really, in the time, I think, of human history, has it been as severe as it is today. And we need this now, more than ever. We need to be able to put aside our biases and our prejudices, our idea is that somehow if you think or feel differently than how I think or feel, then somehow you are to be feared.
Mm-hmm.
Somehow you are my enemy. And by virtue of that, I'm left with a choice of either I have to change you, convert you, remove you, and if I'm unsuccessful with either of those three, then I need to kill you.
Mm.
That was the approach to the Native American.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like accepting all experiences, all perceptions, and welcoming them in to, be able to see, let that guide us home. Let that guide us um, to accepting all beings, all sides of them, and I think that's what love's all about.
It is. Yeah.
Having healthy conversations. Well, how can we find you and keep up with you and um,
What's the website again?
Well, we have two websites.
Okay.
I have a personal website that talks about my story and some of the things that I do and have done and can do now from either a teacher's role or counselor's role or
by the way, Robert did hold a wedding ceremony for us, and it was absolutely incredible.
Oh yeah.
So highly recommend.
Yeah.
It's very special.
Yeah.
my personal website is robertblackeagle.com, and the church has a website, Seventh Generation Native American Church.org.
That's 7 spelled out as a word.
It's
correct?
all the words. There's no numbers.
No numbers.
That's all words. Seventh Generation Native American Church.org.
Great.
Then we have a Facebook page for the church.
Mm-hmm.
And right now we have about 900 people that are following that page, which is kind of an interesting thing because I see that our outreach is not just limited to this geography of Athens, Georgia. We're literally
All
attracting
over the
people all
nation.
over the world.
Mm-hmm.
I have the ability to do see the analytics of our websites and where people are finding us, and literally is all over the world.
Amazing.
It is amazing. So we have the church page on Facebook. It's the Seventh Generation Native American Church. And then we have contact forms on both websites and ways of reaching out to us on the websites.
Or you can catch us on Sunday.
Yeah.
At
come
Rabbit
You
Hole
can catch us on
Studios.
Sunday.
That's right.
Yeah.
11 a.m. every Sunday.
11:11.
Yeah.
We gather at 11. It's kind of interesting that when we first started doing this, that first Sunday, when we seemed to move to that moment where we were about to enjoy music, it was 11:11, and just something kind of magical about those numbers, and it kind of kept
It
that.
just always seems to just organically happen and start at that time.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I also want to say, express my very deep gratitude and appreciation to the both of you for making this space available for the church and for your amazing generosity and hospitality.
It's all right.
None of this, we couldn't be where we are today if it weren't for the two of you, and I'm very grateful.
It's an honor and a privilege, for sure.
Yeah, we're all in this together.
Yeah.
So, and yeah, I do, make some food afterwards, and we like to commune, and so yeah, it's a fun Sunday. We like to have drum circles afterwards and stuff. So, check us out.
Yeah. One of the amazing things to me is that after we finish the service, nobody seems to want to leave.
Yeah, people hang
Yeah.
out for a while.
People just hang out.
I'm really glad it's been able to really, it's like been a nice glue that's been keeping everyone together and keeping everyone kind of focused, and it's just a nice marker to just once a week, coming together, eating together, holding space for prayer together, and
Yeah, even if like you don't believe in God or anything, I feel like that is really a big part of the medicine and the magic of a church. It's really just about bringing a community together,
Sure.
and sharing love and communion and food and fellowship. And we welcome people of all faiths or no faith at all to come and just be joyous and sing songs with us.
Well, see,
Oh.
these are the things that Jesus, Christ, and even Buddha, and many, a host of other religious or spiritual teachers. At the heart of it, Jesus sums it up himself over in Matthew chapter 25, where he says the business about the kingdom people is feeding the hungry, giving drink to the thirsty, clothing the naked, visiting the sick, taking care of the poor. Um, and he told those who were doing those things, who were kind of astonished, because they looked around and said, Jesus said, well, you've done these things unto me, and they didn't know. And he said, well, I say, when you've done these to any of these, the least of these, my brethren, you've done them likewise unto me. So that's where we start really living out the embodiment of that Christ spirit. And he also told us that there's no, this commandment that I give you, a new commandment, is that you love one another as I've loved you. So that's how it all kind of comes full circle.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah, definitely giving those things with love too, not with, resentment or,
Or another agenda.
Yeah,
Or
exactly.
a hook attached to it.
I like that addition to the end because, it's like we can give, but how do we give, fully and with love?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Nice.
Well, thank you so much, Robert, for joining us. Hope to have you back someday. I'm sure we'll keep these podcasts going.
Oh, and we're also going to release Robert's album soon.
Oh yeah,
So
we look forward to doing some recordings with you. That would be lovely. And for our listeners, we have a live performance from today's service where you can listen to Robert playing, and we hope you enjoy.
The album that I'm wanting to put together is I've written, composed musical pieces that correspond with each of the major themes of my vision quest of 2015. And so part of my vision with that is to be able to bring people together and tell the story, as we've done somewhat here, of how we got to be here.
Mm-hmm.
And then have some music attached to the story as well.
Yeah.
Right
well,
now,
we look forward to helping you with that.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. So it's a musical interpretation of the vision quest.
Mm-hmm.
I feel the power of your experiences through the music when you perform it. So keep in touch and look out for that. And thank you.
Thank you.
Well, that about wraps it up. Once again, Robert Black Eagle. Check him out online.com or seventhgenerationnativeamericanchurch.org. And if you'd like to learn more about Rabbit Hole Studios and all the fun events and opportunities that you can find here, check out rabbitholestudios.org. You can also find us on Instagram, Rabbit Hole Fellowship, and we got Facebook and Twitter, Rabbit Hole DAO. So thanks again for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you next time.